On this week's show, we're discussing what will be the next PlayStation remaster, does Until Dawn Remaster set up a sequel, and is Ubisoft getting a remaster? All that and much, much more on this week's GamerGuild Podcast.
Remaster.
Good game, everyone. Welcome back to the GamerGuild Podcast, your weekly show where we round up all the week's video game stories and news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com/GamerGuildTV. It's actually at GamerGuildTV. I always forget the at.
It is.
I always say youtube.com/GamerGuildTV, but you need to put the at in there as well because for YouTube reasons with the weird tag thing, I don't know. Or you can get in the digital clouds on your podcast preference of choice. Joining me this week is Mr. Chris. How the devil are you?
I'm good. It's been a busy week, but long weekend ahead and hoping to play some games. So nice and chill. I think after the crazy business that was last week,
yeah,
I'm just looking forward to being like, do the show and then the weekend is our own for a change.
It's been one of them weeks I've blinked in. It's like, we're recording this on Friday night, but it's blinked. It's like, oh, we're sitting down to record again.
We're back.
Yeah, we're back already. It feels like no time's passed.
Yeah, I think because we did the live stream on Thursday as well.
True, yeah.
And we scattered different shows throughout. It does feel like a non-stop busy week, but that's what we're here for.
Indeed. And you're here for the news. But before we get into it, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell so you're kept in the loop of all of our amazing content here at GamerGuildTV, such as, well, everything we did on our 5th year anniversary stream, everything from the... I think you should check out the console ranking. I think that was probably, for me, the best content we made in that day of our anniversary.
Yeah, absolutely. We isolated an hour to talk about console rankings, and then I think half an hour in, we were at like the Spectrum or something.
Yeah.
We hadn't even made it out of the
Magnavox.
80s. There was some classic consoles that were thrown up there. But yeah, if you weren't familiar with it, yeah, we went and ranked with you. The audience did have quite a lot of involvement as well, but we had a tier ranking system up, so there's a lot of visuals for it as well if you're curious about what it was. We did some research about sales figures and overall impressions of the consoles whilst talking about them and discussing everything from their aesthetics to the games to the libraries to their lifespan to their impact on the whole industry. And yeah, it ended up being a really, really interesting, deep conversation that spanned 2 odd hours. So if you like the podcast that we usually do, but you don't want something that's like news specific, it's probably quite a good evergreen episode, because even when we reached the end, we found it incredibly difficult to rank the current consoles because they're not done yet. So it almost like cuts out at PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch, ironically enough.
The PS5 and the Xbox Series are in there, but with the caveat, it's work in progress.
Construction.
Yeah.
But yeah, great show. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and thank you to everyone who did show up for that show and the whole celebrations last week. We had a great time. We saw many faces, both old and new, showing up in the chat on many of our streams. And again, it's just big thank you for all your support over the last half a decade and helping us make bigger, better content. And actually some of the super chats that we made over the course of the weekend helping fund refresh for one of our next projects. And I think we actually, off the back of the weekend, got the ball rolling on that. So thank you, and look forward to some exciting news in the near future.
Can't wait to bring you it. We also have our live streams where actually during our anniversary stream we started, finally, Gears of War 2, and we continued Gears of War 2, and this week's on last Thursday. How are you finding Gears, Chris?
I'm really enjoying it. I think we said during the live stream, Gears of War is ultimately like a video game based video game. It's why things like Space Marine and Astrobot are thriving right now, because they respect your time. They're not overly long, they're not overly complex, but they just get in and out. You have fun along the way. And Gears in particular, obviously the weapons are great. The fact that it's got a co-op campaign is great. The characters are fantastically written. They're really fun and just light-hearted action. And I think the campaign generally takes about 10 hours to complete. So we're probably about the halfway mark now. You'll probably get maybe two extra streams out of it. But it's really good. I know a lot of people in the chat who jumped in said it's one of the reasons they bought an Xbox 360 back in the day. And I can completely see why. The game still holds up really, really well for a title that's a good decade plus year old.
It does, yeah.
And yeah, the gameplay is still super fun as well as visually. How about yourself? How are you finding it about 4.5, 5 hours in?
I echo everything you just said. I think the game holds up surprisingly well. Better than I would have thought it to. Dare I say, I stand by. Gears is better than Halo. From what I've played of both franchises so far, it holds up really well. The story is interesting. The characters are a bit over the top, but the game also doesn't take itself too seriously, even though the characters take themselves very seriously. But it's fun. Yeah, that's fundamentally, it is fun.
Yeah, there's lots of just like, I'd say like 90s action going on. And I'm all there for it. It is super fun, and it's been interesting because we've had people join us in the chat who've maybe they're not aware of the channel before, but they've joined because of the game we're playing. And I think one of them actively said that we were the only people on the planet right now probably streaming a Gears of War 2 co-op campaign. And I'll take that title and run with it because I'm having a great time.
Yeah, me too. Another accolade for the channel.
Absolutely.
The only active Gears of War 2 streamers.
We'll take that and 161 episodes of a Stadia podcast. Congratulations.
True. But what else have you been playing?
As I mentioned, I've gone back to Star Wars Outlaws. I'm intending to probably push towards the platinum over the next week or so. And it's really interesting, actually, because the delay to Assassin's Creed Shadows last week, it's almost kind of like alleviated the pressure of like getting it all wrapped up before November. So even though I still had another month or so to go, that was like my big final game for the year. So now I'm kind of like, okay, I might dabble in Lego Horizon. I might look at the Horizon Remaster because I have the original. So £10, £9.99 gets me the PS5 upgrade, and I actually enjoyed the first game more than Forbidden West.
Me too, actually.
So it's kind of like, do I go like, is that going to drop at that perfect time when I get back to it?
Forbidden West is one of them. I really enjoyed it, but it is very much more of the same. Where the first one, I think it landed differently because it was unique and interesting.
Yeah.
Both great games,
agree.
But yeah. Forbidden West is objectively the better game, but I preferred the first one.
Yeah, same for me. But then at the same time, there's some news this week around some new video game titles that have just came out, or they're due out this week and the reviews are in. And it is spooky season, so at the same time I could get pulled into, I don't know, go maybe back to Ghostbusters. That's one of my go-to horror ones I drop back to. We've got Resident Evil obviously lined up to get started at some point, but then, as in the news, Silent Hill 2 out of nowhere.
Not really out of nowhere. It's in the list of greatest horror games of all time. So it's not really out of nowhere.
For me, out of nowhere. Like, I've never played it before. It's kind of on the same radar as Resident Evil, where I was too much of a coward to really play horror games or get into them. But then, as I'm older and as everyone's seen through the channel, we've experienced horror games a lot more in recent years, and I've enjoyed them. Dead Space, enjoyed playing that. Resident Evil Village and Biohazard, enjoyed playing them. So it's kind of like, I just need to pull the trigger on one of them, but I'm still leaning towards Resident Evil more because it's the more storied franchise out of the two. But then Silent Hill's like the current new one that's just dropped, so it's like, oh, okay, do I want to be involved in that conversation? But we'll get to that in the news. So yeah, just Outlaws, chipping away at the open world. I finished the campaign a while ago, so it's just kind of mopping up on the collectibles, the side missions, helping all the little random droids out and creatures that you find out there in the galaxy far, far away. Yeah. How about yourself?
Just Zelda, really. I've still got Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Currently, I've put a pin in that for now, because Zelda's just, every time I sit down to play games, it's Zelda I want to play. It's got hooks in me. It's that just like very easy charm the game has. It's not a stressful game. It's not difficult. It just is. It's just fun. It's a very charming game. So just like, you know what, after work, sometimes you've got a few hours to sit down, picking up your Switch and playing something like that, it just works. I imagine you had something similar when you were playing Astrobot.
Yeah.
It's that colourful, cheery nature of the game.
Yeah. It doesn't take much, like some games, like if you had a stressful week and then you had to play something like The Last of Us Part 2, there's parts of that where you just think like, oh, this is not a slog, but you need to be in the right mood to play that type of game.
That's why Plague Tale Requiem didn't land for me, because I was just not in the right frame of mind to play that game when I tried, and it was like, oh, okay, I want to play. Sat down and played, and like, I don't want to play this right now. It was just sometimes it just happens.
You went in the rat mood.
Yeah, I wasn't. That game is bleak as hell, though.
Great though.
It is, yeah. Well, actually, I don't know. I've never finished it. But before we get into it, we do have a merch store as well, where you can get this sexy blue hoodie that I'm wearing. This is a contrast hoodie, so it's blue and grey.
Looks good.
You've seen probably, if you watched the live stream or the live streams or the podcasts on YouTube, you've probably seen Chris's two-tone. Yours is the black and orange, black and yellow. So his is the black one with the yellow inside. I've got the peacock blue with the grey contrast, and I love it. So
peacock blue?
That's what it is peacock blue, yeah.
Not quite as cool as ultramarine blue, but
no.
It's as far as the name, but it looks great. Looks really nice.
That's really comfy.
The white logo really pops.
Yeah. My neighbour actually, because it got delivered to my neighbours, as I was leaving to go to work this morning, he handed me the box. I knew exactly what it was, so I went back in the house and got changed into it.
Just repping it out there. I like
it.
Yeah, there's a few really good ones up on there as well for the merchandise store. There is the next sale, by the way, because we always like to keep our audience kind of in the loop with what's going on. Don't buy anything this week. Wait until the 17th to the 22nd, that little window in a fortnight's time, and there's another 20% sale going on. So we're trying our absolute best to beat the algorithm and get you a discount. So if you are out there and you're thinking of getting stuff, have a look, have a peruse by all means. Feel free to buy now, but save yourself 20% by just holding off until later in the month. So there you go, pro tip.
Yeah, we should mention the giveaway as well while we're on it from the anniversary stream. We're not announcing the winners just yet because, quite frankly, we haven't got round to sorting that out. We will be announcing them in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and we're waiting on one of the prizes to arrive still. So
it's been dispatched. It took longer than anticipated to get. I was hoping to have them in hand before the stream.
Yeah, maybe your neighbour's holding on to it.
No, not yet. It's just we only got an email earlier saying it's been dispatched, so it might turn up on Monday. I don't know. So you might be listening to this, and I might be lying to you right now from the past. Who knows?
Always.
But you know what I know, Chris? You're about to introduce us to
the graciously gathered Gamer Guild Gazette, a.k.a. the news.
The news, and as always, our news is brought to you by our Guild Heroes, which you can join for as little as 99p over on the YouTube channel. Thank you very much for your support, especially those people. It's been about 4 years since we started the membership program.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have been membership members since day one. I don't think we ever really called that out on the stream, but there was a few people, when the live streams you can actually ping through how long you've been a member. There's a few who've actually been a member longer than me.
It's wow.
Yeah, I know. It's like, and I was pretty much day one, so I think it was just probably with a week or two difference, but they've been members since day one, so thank you very much for such great support.
I mean, we can call them out now. There's at 41 months, we've got Sarge, we've got Steve Nelson, we've got Clive Illenden, we've got Brendan McBee, James Pearson, Jin Hood, and Richie C89. Just a couple who were just short. Louise, Link, Tom at 40 months, and then Phil, Meg, Crazy Bad, Cookie McCrumble, and Lee Ellis in and around the 30. Barry Purple Haze around the 30-month mark. Al Davis Music. So there's a couple who are not far off, really. Yeah. Just a couple of months, who maybe didn't realise when we started. But yeah, and again, we thank everyone for joining us, even the more recent ones as well, who've either rejoined or left. YouTube does a really bad job, by the way, of kind of like showcasing to us as the channel holders who's joined, who's left, exit surveys, who's resubscribed. The format in which they get that information to us is really, really poor. So apologies if we sometimes miss you or we don't spot you joining or rejoining or upping a level tier. We get no notifications for it whatsoever.
We have to actively dig through the back end of YouTube to find that information, and it's actually terrible.
Yeah. But we love you all and thank you for the support. So, the news.
But they might fix it in several years, because they did eventually fix the fact that we can now publish to members and then schedule for normal release later, which is something that every content creator I've ever met has wanted since they had a YouTube memberships was a thing.
So we just have to keep our fingers crossed.
We do. Chris, not technically a news item, but what do you think the next PlayStation remaster will be?
I think, it is a quiet week for news, everyone. So, ironically, after a 2-hour bumper episode last week, the well is dry. And we thought we'd start this week's episode maybe talking about the world of remasters, because there's been so many of late. We have Silent Hill news coming up. We obviously have Horizon Remaster. We've got Until Dawn. So, Horizon Until Dawn, Remastered West, whatever you want to call it, coming out as well by the end of the month. And I guess we wanted to look at just remasters in general, specifically for PlayStation, because Xbox don't seem that interested with the backwards compatibility and the super sampling and all stuff they do. Just take a little chunk of the show and basically talk about the remasters that I think is left in the tank, because they don't have many. And I guess, we wanted to start with looking at them. So if you think about what we've got available, the top one that jumps out for me is the shooters. Specifically because I think PlayStation are lacking in that department. We saw the epic failure that was Concord of late, and that was because
Concord Remastered. Let's do it, Sony.
Let's do it. Let's make it a thing. I think ultimately the games as a service model they've leaned into was a bad approach all around, and I think actually just a solid shooter campaign type game like a Doom, I think, is what people would latch onto a lot more. And Sony is sitting on two great ones in the form of Resistance and Killzone. And whether it is just a remake to test the water in the form of just a trilogy of remasters or reboots or remakes, I think that would work really, really well. And if they are successful, then maybe look at a new entry in them. Because currently you can only play Killzone. Shadowfall, which was the PlayStation 4 launch title, is the only entry in that series you can play on current hardware. And as far as as far as Resistance goes, I think you can only play the PSP Resistance Burning Skies. So you can't play the main entry games, but you can play the PSP port as part of PlayStation Plus Premium with trophies as well. But it is probably the worst of all of the titles, so not a great starting point, Sony. So I just think, I hate to think, for game preservation, I'd love them to come forward. For my own personal taste, I'd love them to come forward. But I just really think they need a shooter. Whether it is first person, I don't know how you feel, Richie, but they also have a couple of third person shooters in the bank they could go back to as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking about not what Sony would do, because what Sony's going to do, the obvious answer for what Sony, based on their current practices, would be God of War. They're going to do a remaster of God of War and then God of War Ragnarok. That's most likely. That's what I think they're likely to do.
I mean, God of War 2018 only came out a year after Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah.
So by that cadence, next year we'll be getting a God of War 2018 remaster.
Yeah, and it's in
which
that
seems crazy to say out loud.
It's in that tier of games alongside Horizon and alongside something like Spider-Man and like Last of Us.
I mean, Last of Us has had the treatment well and truly. You've just recently finished the Uncharted trilogy. Mm-hmm. I think Drake's Fortune, the first one, came out in 2008. I know we got the Blue Point kind of up-res remaster collection, but I feel like surely that's ripe for the picking, right? If you're not going to do a new entry...
Is that like a remaster or a remake? Because for me, I don't think there's any point in remastering it. I think it's about as good as that game can get at this point.
Remake.
Yeah, it's a remake for me.
What do they call the Uncharted? Not Uncharted, sorry, The Last of Us. Just The Last of Us. They just gave it part 1, didn't they?
Yeah.
And part 2.
But they are more remasters. They've took the game and done what they can to kind of repolish it. Where
part 1 was in the new engine though, so that was a remake. But this is where, remember, The Last of Us has got 3. It's got the original PS3, the PS4, which was called Remastered. Then we've got Part 1, which was done in the Part 2 engine.
Yeah, you're right. It's kind of a remake.
Yeah, so it's had a remaster and a remake. And Uncharted is just bundled into that Nathan Drake collection, which was a PS4 one. But I just think, looking at visually, Drake's Fortune in particular, it plays great still, but it doesn't have any modern polish on it at all. Other than what Naughty Dog were pushing at the time.
Well, I'm going to be honest here. I played through Uncharted 1, 2, 3, and 4, and Lost Legacy. They all are actually lacking a bit more polish than I realised.
Yeah, I remember you saying. Yeah,
they are a bit sketchy sometimes. Nate doesn't do what you expect him to do. He'll jump off a cliff for no reason. Sometimes, especially on the higher difficulties, it's death by grenade overkill. So there's stuff that where there's a few rough edges, and all of them games, they're still amazing to play, and I absolutely 100% recommend them. But this is my point.
It.
I think they're good enough. Unless you're going to commit to a full remake.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the games for Drake's Fortune, is it big enough?
This is where they could get clever, Richie, and make a double hitter with the Golden Abyss part and a Drake's Fortune remake.
It's Golden Abyss set between 1 and 2?
It's before them all.
Oh, so it's a prequel.
So you could have prequel, set up the whole backstory, then Drake's Fortune, maybe do it in a double hitter, because you're right in saying like some of the paths don't hold up. Like gameplay, story, absolutely. But the last Uncharted game we got, Lost Legacy, was 2017, which is the same year Horizon Zero Dawn came out.
Yeah. For me,
so,
I actually think if you're going to do a remake of Drake's Fortune, what I think you do is you take the blueprint of the story and just leave everything that the original game did behind. Maybe keep some of the puzzles, but you can expand on it, tweak it, make it distinct.
So you want to Resident Evil it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because take the best bits but expand on them.
Only if Sony don't do what they've done with Horizon and keep the original or the remaster available to play. So if you want the original, as it was intended on the PS3, there it is. Here's a new iteration of it. The same story, but remade. We've took the story and we've remade the game.
Yeah, and you could imagine Naughty Dog probably have a couple of things looking back in hindsight and everything they've learned from The Last of Us and subsequent games.
They
must want to add so much. Yeah, absolutely. Like even just like little things like maybe getting in references to his brother a bit earlier in the series, so it doesn't seem as jarring him showing up in 4 all of a sudden and being like, what, he has a brother? That's convenient.
Yeah.
The grappling hook, imagine that showing up in one of the earlier models. You'd have to change the level design a little bit, but as someone going back, I'd have fun for the nostalgia, but then be like, oh cool, this is different, this is new.
But what you could do is you could change the levels in a way where you keep the big puzzles, the big set pieces in place. You could even make them bigger, but the bits between them. Yep. You could add a few other bits and pieces here. You could add more story, have Nate's relationship with Elena develop more.
Or Chloe.
Dun,
dun, dun. Or Chase from Golden Abyss. You don't know about her yet.
I don't.
But yeah, so like, I don't know how we got off the tangent from shooters to that. In terms of third-person shooters, though, I mean, they're sitting on SOCOM. Remember how big SOCOM was when it first came out, where everyone had the headsets, and it was like the first true PlayStation online multiplayer game, and you had to have like a party of, I want to say 4 in your squad. I can't really remember because I was a daft kid and I had the headset, but I don't think I really understood how the online element worked because I wasn't savvy enough to understand the internet and network parties and stuff. And
back then
I think I had the adapter. I mean, that too. I remember just playing like the campaign, but yeah, having the team. Ultimately, it was the Division, before the Division was even a thing. And then they've got Siphon Filter as well, which is almost practically like a Splinter Cell first party title. And I think like depending on what they want to do, I think there's definitely space in their first party lineup for a shooter of some sort, whether it's first or second. And it frustrates me that they just seemingly sit on these franchises. I know their resources can only be stretched so far, and a lot of the studios obviously want to push on and do new IP, and I would never want to hold them against that because we've seen Horizon and Ghost of Tsushima flourish off the back of giving the freedom to these studios.
Well, going back to Naughty Dog, as much as I love Uncharted and would love another Uncharted, Naughty Dog's passion for Uncharted seems to have waned. Their focus, what they want to do as a studio, is Last of Us right now. Yeah. And that's what I want them to do, because that's how you're going to get the best work out of them.
And the new IP, right? They're supposed to be working on a fantasy IP. So yeah, there's loads. Like whatever Cory Barlog's doing at Sony Santa Monica, that isn't God of War. Remember, Santa Monica have pretty much only ever made God of War. So if you've been there your entire career, like, you are probably a little bit stretched thin with like the Norse mythology twists. Obviously, massively give them an injection in the arm. But I think at this point they're like, can we do something that isn't Kratos, please? Yeah. Please.
The Norse mythology twist put it on the map in a way God of War never really was. Mm-hmm. God of War was one of them franchises I think was always a middling AAA title. you knew of it, but it was just kind of, I don't know how many people were clamoring for a God of War game at all times till.
It was always one of their best sellers, but I think in a different genre almost, because the original ones, because they were just like kind of hack and slash action games back in the day.
Yeah.
They still sold ultimately well, but they were of a certain era where I think as video games evolved, that style of game just kind of became less and less interesting.
Maybe
but I think some of the original ones sold millions.
Maybe that's
millions
something
of copies.
that we need to have a podcast on another time. What PlayStation or Xbox game needs the God of War treatment to kind of take the origins of the franchise and take it in a different way to kind of reinvent what the franchise is.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's so many to go back to.
Yeah.
God of War in particular has had involvement from Blue Point. They did some of the ports. Ready at Dawn of Order 1886 fame worked on some for the Vita as well. Rest in peace indeed, yeah. But we've had so many entries from 2005 to Valhalla DLC.
I think the Order and Bloodborne, the difficulties with that is where the rights are, and I think it's probably no one probably knows for sure without getting the lawyers involved, and then it becomes an absolute mess. Because, especially with the Order, with it being the devs being bought by Meta, and then Meta shut them down. It's like, where does that franchise sit? And would
there might be nothing holding them back now. Now they're dead.
Could be. It might be just a check. There might just be one big check away from taking over the IP fully, but it didn't sell well. Yeah. So why would Sony write that check? As much as we both love it and we think the IP has potential, it didn't land when it came out.
Yeah, I think this thing that always benefits these older IP is that even if they didn't do amazingly well, because of the culture that we have at the moment, especially within media, is that if something has enough interest, a studio or a production company would rather look at an existing quantity than make something new. We see it in movies, we see it in TV. I think it was just announced there the TV show Bullseye was going to come back with Freddie Flintoff, like what our parents used to watch. And it's like, you really just don't have enough fresh ideas. So I think The Order, we might not see it for another decade or so, but I think it has enough goodwill and cult following that at some point they'll go, you know what? Yeah, it's rather than start off and make a whole new world and a whole new idea. And we've always said time and time again, like, there's enough in the bones of The Order to be something good. And I think if a passionate team gets behind it, they can do that. To give a little detail for the God of War franchise as well. God of War Original, 2005, sold 4.6 million. God of War 2, 4.2 million. God of War 3, 5.2 million. A high for the franchise. God of War Ascension, 2.2, so it's starting to dip off a little bit. God of War 2018 Reboot, 20 million.
Yeah.
So almost 4 times more than the next highest selling game. So that reboot,
that's what I was alluding to.
Wonders,
it stepped up.
Yeah, it really, really did. And it's interesting. Like, Sony must look at that and go, well, we've got other IP that sold similar numbers, and if we give them the proper treatment, maybe. Yeah. Could we see that? But again, it's a one story, really, isn't it? That it's the same studio that just happened to want to reinvent it. Whereas I think a lot of IPs now passed around a little bit, and the same team that built them necessarily isn't even there. Like, a lot of the developers who worked on some of these titles we're talking about, they'll have moved on long time ago now.
Yeah.
Like, if you're thinking the people making Crash Bandicoot now over at Xbox are the same people who worked on it originally, you're sadly mistaken. You might be lucky if there's a handful, if any,
who
worked on the originals.
Instead of looking at Xbox for the people who made Crash Bandicoot, you might be better off looking at Naughty Dog. More likely to be people there.
But even then, like Andrew Garvin and everything, the originals, like, they've pretty much moved on since then. They've made the money, they've left, they've got new careers, they've got new studios themselves. Just look at Callisto Protocol. That was the Dead Space team who left, founded a new studio, and then did something pretty much the same. I think the outlier, before we move on from this remaster discussion, is Bloodborne. I know we're both not in that vein of form in terms of the gameplay style, but that's every podcast I listen to constantly banging on the drum of Bloodborne. It's its 10th anniversary next year as well. It doesn't have a PS5 patch. Do you know when early doors on the PS5, a couple of them were getting like boost patches for like older games? Nothing for Bloodborne. And of late, in Astrobot, Bloodborne shit all over the place. The deluxe edition of Astrobot came with Bloodborne skins. So they know there is a vibrant cult following for this Bloodborne title, and it's sold respectively well. I think Bloodborne is caught up with From Software doing their own thing. And it's similar to The Order, but the difference is, unlike Ready at Dawn, who failed afterwards, FromSoft have just gone on to bigger and better things, seemingly, in the form of Elden Ring and their other series that they've got done with Sekiro.
Yeah,
it's kind of like they don't need to do Bloodborne.
It's like since Dark Souls in like 2011, Bloodborne was 2015, they've kind of grown and grown and grown.
But this is where we don't know where the IP's tied up with, because I believe PlayStation own the license, but you've got to imagine the reason they haven't touched it yet isn't because they don't want to, it's because FromSoft maybe have first dibs on the game, like making a sequel.
Yeah, maybe they've had conversations. Maybe FromSoft's like, we want to do it, but not yet. Maybe once we're finished with Elden Ring, it's next.
I think 10th anniversary would be great for either a remaster, a remake, or even just a PS5 Pro patch to bump it up to 60 frames and whatnot. In an ideal world, I think everyone would love Bluepoint to work on it, because Bluepoint did Demon's Souls at the PS5 launch, and that's FromSoft. So it's kind of like they've already cut their teeth on that type of gameplay and those type of worlds, and working with the coding that FromSoft have. So they seem like the perfect studio to make a sequel or another remaster. But Bluepoint did say they're working on a new IP, which I think it's either a misdirection, because they are the perfect candidate, and it's just like, even though I wouldn't play it, I'd love for everyone else to get their kicks out of Bloodborne too.
Yeah. You know what would be interesting with Bloodborne? You mentioned it's coming up to its 10th anniversary next March, actually.
Yeah.
What if the Sony license is only for 10 years?
Perhaps.
Or maybe the From Software license. Maybe there might be a 10-year agreement between the companies that at the end of that, it defaults to one or the other.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to imagine these contracts as like, there's all sorts of legal stipulations that we'll never be privy to, but businesses don't go into agreements with each other without safeguards. So
hypothetically, if Sony are looking at this and going, in March 2025, the license to this defaults to us 100%, then we could maybe give Bluepoint this and go, give us a PS5 remaster. Mm-hmm. Then we don't have to pay FromSoft.
Yeah.
Or maybe we pay FromSoft less. There could be a lot of businessy decision. This is where I think it's the same with The Order, where because the rights are seemingly tied up between multiple corporations and different entities, and it's quite unclear where it sits. Mm-hmm. That's where I think a lot of complications come into play. And then when you want to make a video game, the last thing you want to do is start off by having to negotiate legal contracts with entities that are probably not going to be involved in the making of the next game.
Yeah. Or like we said, in terms of devs, the team might not even be around. So the people who lay the rules and get these agreements signed off, they've probably moved on and gone anyway. So I think if you just get the right type of people at the right time with the amount of goodwill behind it, I think it could go on to great things. And there's just so much on the plate that they could go back to. Infamous is another one. Obviously, they've moved on now, Sucker Punch, to doing Ghosts of Yotai. And I think they've got the hands full, but the franchise, I feel like between Spider-Man and the failure of any more Arkham games, we're kind of crying out for a decent superhero title. So I think an Infamous collection could be a good little boost in the arm for that franchise. It's almost like free money sat on the table, but the biggest one for me, as we round out this conversation, is I think Astrobot has proven 3D platformers can exist, get critical acclaim, and be amazingly fun in 2024.
The fact that it's looking back, a question is ridiculous, because Mario,
yeah, but I feel like Nintendo gets that, like, their audience is so catered towards like a younger age demographic, family friendly anyway. I think PlayStation and Xbox have definitely moved away from that over the last 15 odd years. Like we've always said, Xbox's big problem is they're stuck in that bro shooter era and they can't get out of it. They need to evolve, and PlayStation evolved perfectly, I think, with people's tastes, but unfortunately they left behind some of the fun and whimsy that Astrobot has seemingly like reignited.
Yeah, the mistake was not keeping that going as well.
Yeah, you could just have a two-pronged approach to it.
Xbox need to keep things like Halo and Gears going, while also exploring other avenues.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see some great things with their slate of games coming up. But PlayStation just have that heritage in like the Sly Cooper games are left there, or the characters left there. Jak and Daxter is left there. And Ratchet and Clank seems to get to live on. And like, I love the Ratchet and Clank games. But recently I've gone back and I've played a Jak and Daxter game and I've played a Sly Cooper game. So playing them two, heading into them playing Astrobot, I just look at it and think, if you took the same like stunning colour palette and fun and whimsy that Astrobot had and apply it to a brand new Sly Cooper game or a brand new Jak and Daxter game, there is a family-friendly audience for that out there, guaranteed.
I think it is a shame because Ratchet and Clank did really well. So you think, looking at Sly and Jak and Daxter could have been great. But Sony, I think, again, this keeps coming back to the Sony's decision to focus more on games as a service during the early part of this generation has bit them in the arse, because it means that you're moving teams, because they only have a finite number of teams, and if they move half the studios and games as a service, that means something needs to fall apart, something needs to fall down.
Yeah. It's all money.
Yeah.
It's all money and return on investment, but it's. I think the great thing with gaming is I think all the games on that list we will see again in our lifetime, undoubtedly, because like whether it's a remaster or a 50th anniversary collection, like we joke about things like The Last of Us, Richie, getting like multiple remasters and stuff, and does Zero Dawn really need it?
No, but people will buy it. So that's why they've done it.
But imagine in like gaming is one of them things where it's such a young industry, which is ironic to say out loud because it's been going for like 34 years now. But it's such a young industry by comparison to other multimedia. Like music is the entire history of humanity. Video and stuff, obviously a lot younger, but you're talking still nearly 100. Like I think Snow White's 100 this year, right? So that medium's been going for 3 times as long. So when we're like sat there in our 60s and our 70s, exactly. But what kind of pop would a Horizon Zero Dawn triple 50th anniversary look like in 2055? Like,
on the
we just
fucking
don't know.
holoscopes.
We just don't know. But imagine the graphic fidelity. These robot dinosaurs are always going to be cool.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's interesting that people complain now. But if you think this is the end of remasters, because I know we're getting like diminishing returns, but everyone, like, look at us every time they would do like, an Age of Empires collection or a Command and Conquer, we go like, ooh, and it's on sale, and it's slightly better in these small, minute differences, but the nostalgia wins out, and it's been a while since you played it. So I think this entire list of games, from Days Gone to Bloodborne to Sly Cooper, I think we'll see this stuff be reiterated on, reinvented time and time again over the next several decades. And I don't mind, because I think what it all comes back down to is you don't need to buy it.
True.
So if you want it, enjoy it. If you don't have physical media, you might have to rebuy it, because the PlayStation 5 servers will not be on forever. Like, that is the truth.
Yep. One day
they may go for a long, long time. But I mean, you mentioned earlier on about I think it was Infamous, and you said on PlayStation 3. PlayStation 3 online, is that still a thing? PSN online? Can I go on my PS3 and boot it up and download, or more importantly, purchase Infamous?
I don't have a PS3, so I wouldn't know. The only Infamous game I played is Second Son.
It's a great game.
And I 100% believe Infamous needs to come back. That's probably my pick of the bunch, to be honest.
And just to round out, throw it out there while we're talking about Infamous, Insomniac and Spider-Man, remember they did Sunset Overdrive? It's like a random one-off for Xbox exclusive, and now they own that IP. When Sony bought them, they took the IP with them. Xbox were grateful enough to give them it. I feel like that could be ripe for like a relaunch. Get it on PS5, show off all those bright, amazing colours and that Spider-Man fun gameplay that it was. Use the whole Xbox base to get a relaunch on Xbox, because we know Sony are happy to put games out on multiple platforms now. Look at Lego Horizon that's coming out next month. And then do a deal. Get out there. Reignite the interest in that game. Because I've never played it. But I love Spider-Man.
Because it's quite a vibrant game, that might be an interesting way to show off the PS5 Pro as well. Yeah.
Would be next gen, and it's one of them things where I think it's a phenomenal game that just got lost in the Xbox One gen. It's the best game on the Xbox One, is what I've heard from Xbox fans, and I've never even looked twice at it because didn't have it, and the console failed epically. So, but remasters, Richie, maybe we'll remaster this podcast one day.
Maybe.
But
until then, let's just talk about a remake just to change things up. Silent Hill 2 remake why didn't it start with Silent Hill 1, Chris? Answer that. Why didn't it start with Silent Hill 1?
Because they're trying to copy Resident Evil too closely. Silent Hill 2 is the better reviewed game, so I can see logically why they would start there. But this, for me, is probably the one stumbling block that would make me really be serious about purchasing it and getting into the Silent Hill world, is because the detailed nature of my being is like, I don't want to start at number 2. It's such a weird stumbling block in my brain.
Yeah, you took some convincing to even try Final Fantasy. Was it 15 or 16 you tried?
16.
16, yeah. Because for that reason, it's like, no, you don't have to play the other 15 first. This is a standalone title.
Yeah. But don't call it 16 then. I mean, yeah, like, because, I mean, get into the reviews first and we'll talk about, like, why they maybe didn't start with 1.
Yeah, just generally, looking at Metacritic, generally favourable reviews based on 55 critics and an 87. It's a Game of the Year contender.
Damn.
Reading from GameSpot, the original Silent Hill 2 is one of the most beloved, culturally significant and overall best horror games ever made. No one's biased there at all. It appeared to be the case that trying to recapture the magic of the game was to misjudge how impactful its time and place were and how its limitations helped shape it for the better. That's one of the things that people remember most about Silent Hill is, the fog mechanic. Wasn't a mechanic, it was a graphical limitation.
Yeah.
They used it to great effect. Continue reading. Any studio advancing on such a project should have had a Phoenix task ahead of them, forever chasing its essence like a moth with a hole in your net. Weird turn of phrase there. However, by staying true to the original game in extremely important ways and taking calculated risks born from an understanding of the source material, all while being supported further by some of the game's original brain trust, Bloober Team has done what was reasonably considered near impossible. The remake of Silent Hill 2 is a restless dream come true. 90.
Damn. I'll give you a Euro game on. They give it 5 out of 5, or full marks, 100%, which is one of the highest ones. And just the round out of the review, it doesn't matter if you've never played Silent Hill 2 before. It also doesn't matter if you have. Silent Hill 2 Remake is a heady blend of old and new, delivering the best horror I've played for years. And I suspect that will hold true even for those meeting James, presumably the protagonist, for the first time. A little light padding and some minor grumbling about the combat aside, there's not a single thing I wish Bloober Team had done differently. How it looks, how it sounds, how it plays, how it iterates and modernises whilst honouring its cherished source material. Silent Hill 2 Remake is as close to perfect as I could have ever hoped for, and my hopes were high, my friend. I feel like that's an in-joke about the game. But yeah, like, that's top dollar review right there.
The general theme is they've nailed it.
Which there was a lot of reservations about Bloober Team going into this when we first found out they were going to make it, and Konami came out and said they were going to make about 100 Silent Hill games, because we've got like one based in Japan, if I remember. There's Remake. Is there a VR game, I feel like, as well? They announced about 5, or there's this TV show in the work as well. And I think, when they said, like, Bloober Team are going to be the ones doing it, and we thought, like, well, what are they known for? They did Layers of Fear. The Medium, actually, Richie, did you check out The Medium?
No.
Or did you, on the channel? Oh, no, you checked out, what was the one with all the goopy stuff? Scorn? Was that one?
Scorn,
that's what I'm thinking of, yeah. They've done Layers of Fear. They did a Blair Witch game back in 2019, like a movie tie-in. But other than that, like, nothing really of note. I think the reason they bagged this one is because of their experience with Layers of Fear being a horror title. But yeah, it was kind of like, can they do it? And like, hopefully this is their glow up, similar to how Blue Point got back in the day, where it's like, actually, we can make our own stuff, but maybe our talents are best served polishing existing.
Taking what exists and bringing it the best out of it.
Yeah, and this isn't Konami making it in-house. This is Konami shifting it out to a second party. So this is a partnership deal that you would imagine, Richie. They move on to the next one, right? They go Bloober Team, well done, congratulations. Hopefully the game sells well. And Konami go, and then this is back to our conversation. Konami now go, right, do we make one? Or do we push on with the sequels? Because I don't know how deep Silent Hill goes. Is there a 3, 4, 5 spin-off? Code Veronica? Joke. What is there? Because I don't know. What's the history of this franchise.
But
him at the end of that review
know.
saying if you've played it or you haven't played it originally makes me a little bit more intrigued. Like, okay then, so if I don't have to play them, what do you think? Where do you sit on this one? I know you're similar to me with your horror history.
Yeah, my interest in horror games is very not there, really. I don't know.
Very not there.
Very not there, yeah. Total good words right now. Good, please. I don't know. It seems like they've nailed it. I do agree with you on Bloober Team. Maybe their future is in bringing it, and at the moment, this is just critical reviews. It hasn't got in the hand of users, so God knows what will happen there. You know what us gamers like. We are a fickle bunch.
Right. Yep.
And there's also critical reception doesn't always translate to sales.
Right. Okay. So, being novices, so looking at this, there are multiple games. There is a Silent Hill 3 and 4, and then Origins. However, by the looks of it, Silent Hill 3 is a direct sequel to Silent Hill 1. So it actually looks like 2 is a separate story from the first game.
Okay.
So I reckon they've picked out 2 specifically to follow this character James Sunderland's story. Boo Sunderland. And if it's done well, I think then they'll look at going back to Silent Hill 1, because then if 3 ties into 1 directly, it might be a bit odd to go... You know what I mean? Like, if 3 is a direct sequel to 1, it's safer to do 2 as a standalone. If it did bad, they wouldn't have half a story. Whereas if it's done well, it now makes sense, I guess, to go back, do 1 and then do 3 if they're follow-on stories. And then Silent Hill 4, The Room, seems to be where the series really started to lose its vibe.
Well, if you want to kind of get a gist of why things went wrong, if you can just go to the Silent Hill wiki page and look at the number of developers, and it seemed like every year or two it changed hands, the franchise, through especially during the early 2000s. I'm not surprised if the franchise is constantly changing hands, that it would kind of lose its direction a bit. At one point, even Kojima was involved.
PT?
Kojima in 2014. That was 2014.
Yeah. PT, man. 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then nothing. Nothing since PT. Well,
then nothing for
PT.
9 years before it re-emerged. Well, it's actually 10 years before Bloober Team, Hexadrive got over it. Behaviour Interactive got hold of it in 2023. There's just a lot of different developers, and there still is, actually, which this is, I think, could be the problem with the franchise, where this one might come out and do well, but all the other titles that got in the works, will they land? And if they don't, does that bring down this game in terms of potential for a sequel?
Yeah, you need cohesion.
Yeah,
within a franchise. So
the reason why Bloober Team might have wanted to go with 2 rather than 1 is when it will come out, we'll do 2. That sets us up to do a sequel to Silent Hill 2. As you said, 3's kind of a sequel to 1. 2, I don't think 2's had a direct sequel.
It's hard to tell without knowing. I wouldn't want to guess, but it seems like they've got ample source material to build on, and I think the key thing is just if the game has success now the reviews are out and it's reviewing well. We are going into spooky season, so you'd imagine it's going to sell well. Not only based off the nostalgia, but the vibes the game gives off at this time of year, and it does look decent.
And it's the cult classic.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, fingers crossed for it. I'd love it. I'd love some competition for Resident Evil, quite frankly, because they've been running away with it for a good 20-odd years now, it seems.
They have.
So, yeah, let's see how Silent Hill does. But, yeah, my interest is piqued.
No, with your interest being piqued, is your interest piqued in going back to Starfield at all, Chris?
No, not at all, Richie. Not at all.
Yeah, me either. So Shattered Space has dropped. Reviews they exist.
They do exist.
Currently sitting on a Metascore of 57. It's not doing well. I'm surprised, actually.
Why are you surprised?
Because Starfield, it didn't land the way Xbox was hoping it would, but I don't think it was as bad as a lot of people made it out to be. It was just fine. And they've been doing a lot of work on the run up to Shattered Space to really try and get the game up to standard.
Yeah.
And with Shattered Space, the promise was with it being set on one planet, but a lot more effort went into the design of that planet. It wasn't just procedurally generated nothingness, which a lot of Starfield was. It seemed like it could have brought out the best in what that game was.
Yeah, I don't think Bethesda have had... Yeah, it's weird to say that in a game that you could play for hundreds and hundreds of hours, but I feel like the best of it is still yet to come. I feel like the foundations of that, I think you said before, it's like similar to a Skyrim where you can see yourself going back to this in like several years or 10 years or whatever it may be. And I think Shattered Space is one step on that journey. To pull directly from our Discord, actually, for anyone who wants to join our Discord, links in the description below. Hjorvar, who's one of our members, who's been a big Starfield advocate from the beginning, it's just reiterated that it's such a strange game. Reading direct from a Discord, I remember he mentioned it earlier in the week. He said it gets longer the more you play. It gets better, the longer you play it. But it's hard to tell people to play it when the first 25 hours is practically a tutorial. He then goes on to say Shattered Space. If you like Starfield and you want a 15-hour quest line that is on one planet, then this is fantastic. If you didn't like Starfield and you're hoping it'll change your mind, you probably won't enjoy it. So it's kind of like if you love the first bit, then great. I think my best parts playing Starfield were the focus missions, and like the Mantis mission and going and becoming a space ranger was super cool. It was the vacant literal space, to term pun, in between that was just dull and boring, and I did not want to explore at all outside of just going from mission point to mission point to mission point. And for a game that's around literal space exploration, I felt that was the biggest letdown of this game.
Yeah, I always felt my worry about Starfield when it was announced was they went, you can explore the whole universe, it's got X million planets and stuff. I was like, my mind went to, it's going to be procedurally generated, they're going to be planets with maybe 1 or 2 free biomes each that are kind of cookie cutter. It's not going to have the design, it's not going to have someone's hands sculpting out the narrative around the world that made things like Skyrim great. And so when you land on a planet, it did just feel flat. Not necessarily in terms of terrain, but it's like, why explore? You're not going to go over, because it's procedurally generated, you're not going to go over the cliff, see an ancient ruin that someone's painstakingly built, work your way down to the depths of it and find out a cool weapon in the end. You're going to find some generic loot that's been generically put there by a generic algorithm.
AI. Yeah,
it's just...
It doesn't feel quintessential Bethesda, which they've been known for in the past. I know some of the Fallout expansions are terrific, and it's not a shame because, again, I feel like it's a stepping stone onto it, and I think Starfield has like long-term goals for Bethesda. Pulling in from some of the reviews, not just our takes on it. Games Radar gave it a 6 out of 10, and I quote, Starfield Shattered Space is a solid expansion that presents lots of choices and exploration, but it doesn't really deliver on the horror aspect Bethesda teased initially. There's plenty of intrigue to be found on Varukai and the city of Dazra. That must be like the condensed location you go to. And some side quests offer some memorable highlights. But as one of the most elusive factions in Starfield, Shattered Space feels like a missed opportunity to go all in on the weirdness and unsettling atmosphere the opening did so well to establish. Another one from Pure Xbox. They give it a 5 out of 10. Starfield Shattered Space is a big disappointment in almost every way. We love the base game for all its flaws, and we were willing to be the big exciting DLC. We're waiting, for the big exciting DLC drop that'd make us love it all over again. However, what we've got here is a very average narrative expansion that fails to add any big choices, any big upgrades, any big enemies, any new biomes, loot, or anything that could potentially excite or draw new players in. It's buggy, janky, badly acted in places, and there's a myriad of bugs and performance issues to be ironed out. What a missed opportunity. That sounds like Bethesda.
Yeah, do you get a feeling that Bethesda are kind of almost a fallen giant at this point?
They're like a BioWare, for me personally. And I never had any massive buy-in. Starfield is the first Bethesda game I've completed fully.
I don't know. I think the design, this kind of design philosophy of something like, even like Skyrim or Fallout and now Starfield, feels dated.
The engine, man, you get beautiful vistas, but like I think my biggest bugbear when I was playing through it the first time, because this was the first, like I paid for the deluxe edition to get early access because I was that hyped. Like they got me in with it all, and I think I said to you early doors, it's just like the facial capture, the acting, the jank of just getting stuck on things and NPCs doing whatever the hell they wanted, and the being in the menus all the time, and just I was disappointed on many, many fronts with Bethesda. I think I'd built it up in my mind being like their best, most ambitious game ever, and all the love that people had for Fallout and Skyrim and stuff, I thought, right, this is the one for me. I'm a sci-fi fan. It's brand new. I'm getting in on day one. I'm now in the Xbox ecosystem, and yeah, I just felt a bit let down on all fronts, and that's without the legacy that like you and Rob, and because Rob was really disappointed with it as well, and he's a huge Bethesda fan.
Yeah, same. I loved. Christ knows how many hours I've got in Skyrim, but it's Fallout 4 was fairly early PlayStation 4 generation. Skyrim was PlayStation 3. This is what I mean with like some of the design philosophy feels dated.
You get one a generation.
It feels like they should have reinvented between Fallout 4 and Starfield what a Bethesda game is. The worst thing for me was it did feel like I was just playing an old Bethesda game. It didn't feel new and shiny or interesting. It's like, yeah, okay, this is Bethesda.
Yeah.
So it just, I liked it. I think I'd still give it like a 7 out of 10. It just felt flat. It didn't.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Me too.
It didn't blow me away that I think I was expecting it to.
The story was really cool. Outside the main story and a few like the side quests though, like you got this whole world to explore and the universe to explore. It's like, why? None of that worked.
But they have added a lot of polish to it, and I know they've added like the rover in now and some of the expansions. And I think again, as a complete package, I know it's annoying to say, but I feel like if you were patient and you went back to this game maybe 5 years deep, it's probably going to be a hell of a lot better.
Yeah.
In 2030 than it ever is now.
True, but for a game that was like 10 years in development, having to wait 5 years before it's actually decent.
Mate, you just wait for the
decent. No, that's harsh. Before it's good.
This is the problem with game development. Remember when the Fallout show did really well, and we said like, well, how long till Fallout 5? Because you're probably going to be waiting 7, 8, 9 years.
Yeah.
Based on the cadence in which they get stuff out, because the next big focus is Elder Scrolls, right?
Yeah, which I worry for now, actually.
Well, you've got 5 years to worry about it, so I wouldn't put it at the front of your mind just yet.
Yeah, and it's just going to feel like a sequel to Skyrim, which is a problem.
When did they reveal that? Elder Scrolls. What's the new one? Is it 6? Is it 6 the next one? Reveal date. When do you think it was revealed?
2017?
Elder Scrolls revealed. Oh, I can't find it. 2021. Explain. Oh no, that's explained. It was using the same engine. Elder Scrolls official announcement trailer 2018.
Oh, it's close.
Yeah, it's 1 year after Horizon Zero Dawn.
But that was just a quick shot of a logo over like a vista, and then that was it.
Yeah, but the fact
hey guys, we're working on it. It's like, yeah, we know.
Officially announced it is like, damn. 9 months ago, Spiderbot did comment on that an announcement teaser saying another few years and Bethesda will release a special edition of this trailer. Happy 5th anniversary of the trailer, everyone. See you another 5 years for the 10th. 6 years today. See you guys at 12. There's a lot of irony in the comments. I'm currently 26 and I just hope that my grandkids will enjoy this game when it comes out. I love it. There's something great. It's crazy at this point that we're getting Grand Theft Auto 6 before Elder Scrolls 6. I mean, yeah. This is like releasing a trailer for Morrowind in 1985. They're not wrong.
It makes you wonder what led to the decision to announce that they're working on it when it's like everyone knows you're working on it. Of course you're working on a sequel to Skyrim, one of the greatest games of all time. Yes, you're working on a sequel to it. You don't need to tell us. Just wait till you got something to show. But
I think that was before the Bethesda acquisition, right, as well? So that was Bethesda just doing Bethesda things before Microsoft were like, whoa. Don't announce it a decade early, please. But you know what? That's what remasters are for.
Indeed.
We'll get another Skyrim before then, don't worry.
True, but talking about remasters, Until Dawn got a remaster.
That's all we've spoke about.
It is. It's a very remaster-centered... We've talked about a remake of Silent Hill 2. So slightly
Remakes,
different.
remasters, re-releases, repackages. I like it.
It's set to debut. Actually, I'm reading from a Eurogame article, almost read verbatim, set to debut on PS5 and PC tomorrow, October the 4th, which is the day of recording, which is last week.
Yeah, it's out now.
Yeah, it's out now. Any thoughts of picking it up? Because this is one of them games that falls into the category of why they're remaking this is good enough already.
No, and it opens up an interesting conversation point because people criticised the Horizon remaster, to a degree rightly so, and then also not so much because of the upgrade path. This comes out today, no upgrade path. So if you own this on PS4, tough shit, you have to buy the full price version.
Yep.
But this isn't getting any headlines or problems or people kicking off online about Aloy and stuff looking different. Why does Hayden Panettiere look different?
I think it's less.
Why does Rami Malek look older? There is, but you see what I mean? Like, why is there... Surely this should be parity between every console. This is a PlayStation exclusive getting a remake release, and there is no upgrade path. I own this on PS4.
Yeah.
But I also don't care because I'm not that invested in the game as much. I think this is one you play with friends for me. Like that's how we played it originally, right? You came round, you killed everyone in our group.
Yes. We
kept them all alive and for like 3/4 of the story and handed the controller over to you and you murdered them all. Damn Wendigos. But yeah, I mean, I hope there's obviously a movie in the works. I hope this does good. Controversy aside regarding that, it looks great. I think the biggest story to come out of this, realistically, Richie, is they've altered the ending.
They have.
To spoilers for potentially setting up the franchise to expand. And I think clearly Sony really think they've got something with Until Dawn.
Does this justify the remake when people who were going before going, it doesn't need it? Does this now go, oh, actually, we've decided to change how the game ends so we can set up the next story, which is one that we want to tell?
It's the plan. So if we put our spoiler hats on, it is a spoiler and it isn't a spoiler. There's a character in the game played by Rami Malek, who's, of course, gone on to be world-famous actor. I think he's won a good couple of awards for his Mr. Robot performances and his Bohemian Rhapsody biopic of Queen and all other things. The post-credits scene is in the game. It's all about choices, very much like a Telltale style game. If you've not played it before, it's a bunch of teenagers get in trouble up in a lodge, and there's some kind of sci-fi elements to it. And Richie can either kill him or he can help him survive, depending on Richie's choices. Probably die if it's Richie. And the end of the video game, the remake, basically shows us a different post-credit scene where his character is seemingly not dead. Even if he does die in the game, he seemingly escapes somehow, basically setting up like he can come back. And that tells me that Sony must have had conversations with Rami Malek about potentially coming back. Otherwise, why would they save that character over a lesser known one who they could probably get a lot cheaper if they didn't think like, you know what, the movie's in the lineup. This is a very cinematic game as well in its visuals and its actors. It's got a good couple of big names in there. And it just made me think, like, yeah, they have something in the works. And let's be honest, if we look at Supermassive, their games have gotten worse since this game. Until Dawn was their height 10 plus years ago. Yeah. And the Dark Pictures anthology and The Quarry, once a Stadia exclusive, just has not quite hit the nail on the head. So I think getting back to Until Dawn is probably high on their priority list, as well as PlayStation if they can make some money off, let's face it, a first-party franchise.
Yeah, true. What if the movie is actually a sequel to the game, not a retelling?
Well, they're not using the same actors, so it could be. They could just like reference it and drop people and places in, and I guess if you played the game, it might be a nice little Easter egg, but it depends if the movie's going to tell the same story or like an advanced version of it featuring the same enemies.
I was just thinking, if they're getting Rami Malek back to re-film scenes for the game, surely then talks about him with it being in the movie in some discrete way, shape or form.
Well, the movie does have, the Doctor. I only ever know him as Dr. the guy Hill from Jurassic Park, The Lost World, who gets killed by the compies. That's the guy who you're thinking of, everyone out there. He's reprising his role for the movie. So it is connected, but then if you remember in the game, he tells the story almost like detached from the whole thing, that the events that are going on. He's almost like a psychiatrist recounting the events with you, the player, and then you go in and play the scenes out. So it's like horror. It's weirdly connected, but it's not at the same time. But then horror has the benefit of it can be weird and trippy and different, and it can do flash forwards, it can do sci-fi. It's pretty much can do whatever it wants because they just blame it on the horror. We do it for the jump scares. Why did that happen? For the jump scares. I'd love to see a sequel where Rami Malek comes back and maybe you do get Hayden Panettiere? Panettiere, yeah. I remember Heroes.
Yeah. Heroes was great till it wasn't.
Yeah.
I still think season 1 of Heroes is one of the greatest TV shows of all time.
Such a shame.
It is. Let's move on. Unless you got anything else you want to say about Until Dawn?
No, I just think it's a franchise that it has legs, and with every franchise, I'm happy, and arms, and when Dingo has multiple arms. But yeah, I'm happy for it to do well. I think between this and Silent Hill, PlayStation have got a stacked horror a couple of weeks ahead, leading into Halloween. So yeah, interesting one. What I learned this week. Total side note: do you know Australians don't celebrate Halloween?
No, because they're upside down.
They are, but they still could do it upside down. Hang jack-o'-lanterns and stuff. But
to be fair, I think I was actually talking to my girlfriend the other day about this. Halloween's one of them things where I think it was a thing when we were kids.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think it was much of a thing for our parents, and even when we were kids, it wasn't anywhere near what it is now.
Americanisms.
Yeah,
Americans.
I feel it's like one of them things that we have slowly adopted from America, and it's kind of ramped up. Yeah.
Proms
weren't a thing.
Were not a thing. Not a thing. But Halloween coming up soon.
It is.
Spooky season.
Indeed. And moving on to Ubisoft.
They've had a good horror season for the last couple of years.
Yes, their games have been scaring their life out of their shareholders.
Indeed.
Which has led to them reportedly considering a major change to a structure and potentially going private.
Yeah.
It's a big move because they are very famously a publicly traded company.
But they are also partially owned by the Guillemot family, are they not? Is it not? They already own major stakes in it.
I'm reading from GameSpot. Tencent owned 9.2% of Ubisoft's net voting rights at the end of April and currently holds 49.9% of the Guillemot brothers' holding company's indirect stake. Minor shareholder and hedge fund AJ Investments published an open letter last month asking Ubisoft to go private and change its strategy. So basically, fuck knows who actually owns and controls this company.
The Guillemot family bought a bigger stake, I think, when Vivendi were trying to do a hostile takeover in 2015 or something. And they managed to stave them off, and then they've gradually looked for more investment over time. I have no clue how this works with stock and shares and majority in this and hedge funds and stuff like that. It's basically lots of money that we'll never have. I do know if you'd have bought shares in them when they're at an all-time low last week, the shares have actually jumped up 10% since this announcement. So you could have actually made a little bit of profit. That
would make sense actually, because if the shares are at an all-time low, you buy them, and then suddenly they're talking about we're going private. That would mean as whatever corporate entity is going to will be forced to buy you out of your shares.
Yeah, absolutely. Good for anyone who made that move.
Yeah.
Does going private, would that actually make any difference? Taking off the stock market, does that matter for a games company now they're that big?
Yes. The reason I say yes is because when you are a private company, you can choose who you're doing business with. When you're publicly listed, the ownership structure of your company is down to whoever's buying your company, and you don't really have much control of who's doing that, which means that as when you're running your business, you're running it for the shareholders, and the shareholders might have absolutely no interest in video games. They're interested in a return on their capital.
Yeah, their investment.
Where if you're keeping this private, you can vet people better. So you can still have multiple stakeholders, but you can vet people in a way so that you know that the people who are buying shares, who have significant control of your business, are invested in the product as well as a return.
So the Guillemot family would have to fork out a pretty penny, I'd imagine, to buy out these shares.
It depends, because Tencent are involved. It could be, and this investment firm. What was it, AJ Investments or something?
Yeah.
I read. I've lost the name.
I feel like all this is a lot of rich people just talking about rich people stuff.
It is. But the fact that it came from the investment firm in the letter to go private suggests...
They just want out.
But, or do they? Or do they want more in? Do they see this as an opportunity to gain more control of Ubisoft and restructure it in their own image?
So are we now just back to hostile takeover motion?
Not hostile. This could just be a normal takeover.
Because I'm right in thinking hostile is just where you start buying up shares without asking permission from the shareholders. You just buy them on the market.
In a hostile takeover, obviously it's hostile. It's against the will of probably what the current board want to do.
Yeah.
Or whoever's running the company can often get shafted out, and it's like, you, fuck off, I've bought this.
Yeah, I own the majority now, so I make the decisions kind of thing.
Yes, I know you might own 30%, the CEO might own 30% of the company, but we collectively own 51%. You're standing down.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of restructuring that needs to go on at Ubisoft, I think, just from a headcount perspective. They have 10,000, I think, people working from across the planet.
Yeah.
They're so bloated, and compared to everyone else that's been doing layoffs. And I know they've had some layoffs, but the scale in which they work is it's mind blowing. You got to think the real estate on all these studios they have in big cities around the world as well can't be cheap, and the games as a service stuff is constant, and they've made some big decisions of late to cut games. Remember we had Division Heartlands was just killed almost a half a year out from release. We've had Hyperscape, which was launched and shut down. We've had games that have undersold, Star Wars Outlaws has reportedly only sold 1 million copies,
which is surprisingly low considering it's Star Wars. I know it didn't review the greatest, and it's very, very Ubisoft in its presentation. It looks decent. I am interested in playing it because I like Star Wars, and I don't mind Ubisoft. Despite how critical I am, I do think they produce decent games.
Yeah. 1 million for me seems like... I feel like I would have to see some more stats, because you're right. I think 1 million is an incredibly low bar, especially with the IP attached to it. I don't believe there isn't a million people out there, or more than a million, sorry, that would buy a Star Wars open world game. Yeah, at least. So, yeah, interesting to see how that nets out big time, especially when we were talking about God of War selling 20 million. Yeah. You're telling me a Star Wars game, open world, AAA quality in 2024 doesn't sell more than 1/20th of God of War sales. I find it hard to believe, so we'll see.
But you have to remember, God of War, it looked like it was going to be one of the greatest games of all time, and it was.
Yeah.
Star Wars Outlaws looks like a game that should have come out late PS3 at times.
Yeah, but I just think 1 million just seems incredibly low.
Yeah, I agree. I am.
If you'd have said 3, 4, I would have been okay, that's still poor for Ubisoft's numbers, and it's multi-platform as well, which God of War is exclusive to PlayStation. So you got bigger audience as well.
Does Ubisoft's track record of putting games into sales very early after release hammer this?
I don't think the general audience really think of that, though. I think they just see game being marketed and go, "Oh, cool, the Star Wars game's out. I'm going to get it."
True, but if you're looking at Amazon and you're constantly seeing sales in other Ubisoft games, I think you might go, you know what, I'm interested in that game. I'll wait till the price comes down.
Yeah. Maybe they are just
It might have a long tail, and it might not be as profitable, but I reckon this by the end of next year, this is down 5 to 10 million.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think maybe Ubisoft are just one of them companies who just similar to Xbox with their struggles of just like they can't escape the rot now. And no matter what they do, they're just doomed to some kind of end.
It feels like during the last console generation, during PS4, Sony found a way to really step up its game from PS3.
Very few have.
I don't think Ubisoft have done that. I don't think Bethesda have done that. I don't think Xbox in general have done that.
Yeah.
It feels like a lot of the design philosophy is feeling a bit dated.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I think Star Wars Outlaws, while these are still good games and fun, bear in mind we are playing through Gears of War 2 and having a blast. So there's fun to be had. But games are expensive. So you're expecting a level of quality, and the bar, I think, has been moved.
Just look at Suicide Squad as another example.
Do we have to? Because no one else is. Well, 300 people are. So season 3 of Suicide Squad has landed to 300 people on Steam.
Less than 300 people. I mean, we don't need to spend long on this. It's season 3 is out with Suicide Squad. Everyone wanted a Batman game. You didn't get one. Hence this. Those are Concord-looking numbers, Richie.
Does it see out the air?
I mean, what did they commit to? They committed to like a year roadmap, right? With seasons and other stuff. But at the same time, WB has since came out and said it cost them 200 million revenue loss. So I think this is one where they have the best intentions and they eventually cut ties with it. So
on October, the 2nd of October, Victoria Kennedy over at Eurogame said at the time of writing there's only 144 people playing the game.
Oh. Well,
I don't know what time she was writing the article, but
Suicide Squad, Killer Justice League, Steam numbers.
Peak concurrence was just 248.
Steam DB chart. Playing it right now, Friday night in the UK, so obviously time zones dependent. 227. 227. Ouch.
Is this game dead?
Yes.
It's obviously its peak was on launch at about 13,000 looking at Steam DB. It had a spike in April where it went as high as 3,000.
Yeah.
Then decline has been it's been sub 1,000 since April.
I mean, again, to paint you a picture of the landscape, Helldivers 2, currently 39,000.
Yeah.
Compared to 200. Both live service games, one with a massive IP attached to it, one without. Who's winning in that world? Let's have a look at Palworld as well. Just landed on PlayStation this past week. Palworld, another big one of the year. Currently 16,000. 227. Yeah, I think Suicide Squad's everything we predicted years ago when we were covering this on Google Stadia and saying like no one's asking for it. But we don't need to retread this. But yeah. R.I.P. Suicide Squad. Rocksteady, get back to making us a Batman game, please.
Yes, please.
See you in 10 years when we get the next Elder Scrolls, the next Batman Arkham game, and Arkham Shadows for VR looks great. But shame.
Moving on through a few, I think, really quickly, because, to be honest, not much to talk about them. Football Manager 25 has been announced, and it's coming to Game Pass on November 26th. Anything to add?
I've never played a Football Manager, really, other than watching my cousin and friends play it around the house. So, I know you played it on mobile a little bit. I guess this means the old game's going to be delisted soon as well. Yeah,
that's what usually happens. I think this is one where if you're interested in Football Manager, it's coming out the 26th. If you're not, moving on. The original Horizon Zero Dawn is being removed from Epic Games Store. Head of the remaster. Bad move.
He's the new one. You can't buy the old one. That's why physical.
Yeah.
Could go buy a PS4 copy, CX, for probably 10 quid.
Probably. I'm more inclined on this one to point the finger at Sony rather than Epic.
I've
got a feeling that Sony have retracted the license to sell.
It's still up on Steam, so
it is.
That would suggest
for now.
It's a deal.
For now, but you know what might be happening, Chris? Could David Hayter be returning to Metal Gear Solid?
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
That's it.
That's it. Anything more to say?
No, he's teased it on Twitter, but
yeah.
I mean, he is the voice of Solid Snake, and he's not like incredibly old. So
yeah, he's tweeted literally saying, "I was in the booth today playing a role I've not played since ... and then there's literally a gif of Snake.
Yeah, I think with maybe Delta on the cards and the hype behind it, I feel like it might just be a voiceover for like a launch trailer or something. Like they need a record of some fresh lines. I know he was doing Konami work to promote the game anyway. I've seen a lot of kind of behind the scenes where it's him in a studio talking about the history of the game and the remake and why Delta's different and what they've changed. So he's very much the spokesman for Delta, which I think in the lack of Kojima, the voice of Solid Snake is probably the next best thing you're going to get for Western audiences to look at that and go, oh, that's cool. So, yeah, I don't think it means we're getting a new game because I very much think the cadence is going to be Delta, then we're going to get a 1 remake, then a 2 remake, then the collection of the collection volume 2, and then again, we're probably in line with Elder Scrolls Richie, we'll get the next entry in the Metal Gear franchise in 2035.
I suspect what this is with Delta, they'll probably use quite a lot of the original voice clips if the quality's good enough. Mm-hmm. But there might be somewhere they need to re-record, or they might need to expand, have a few more takes. You know, probably a lot of things like weird grunts and stuff, where they want a few more different variants in there to give a bit more depth to the game with it being a remake. I reckon it's that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Looking at a quick poll from IGN as well, which Metal Gear game do you want to see remade after Snake Eater? 48% is Metal Gear 1. Then followed with the original Metal Gear, which a lot of people didn't play because it was on
Which I suspect
Genesis.
A lot of people did what I've just done and clicked that one to vote for, thinking it was Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, incorrect. That was the 2D scroller, right?
Yeah.
Not 2D scroller, but it was 2D. Metal Gear Solid Sons of Liberty, 7.5. And then, Guns of the Patriots, which is still trapped on PS3. I think that'll be part of the collection, but I also think the cadence which we'll get is by the time we get to a Guns of Patriots remake, you're talking 10, 15 years, right?
Could that just be a
once
remaster?
you've got through them.
Remaster?
But it'll be so much later. It'll be in the collection, the volume 2, in its like original format, but I think by the time we're 15 years out and they've done Delta, they've done Metal Gear 1, they've done Sons of Liberty 1, these games are going to take like 4 or 5 years out of pop, so we are genuinely talking probably 15 years till we get to Guns of the Patriots, and by then that game's going to be like 30-year-old.
Yeah.
So it's like, again, this is back to what we said about remasters, is we're in a world where we are going to get all the games we love so much at some point, because they're just getting older, and remaking them is an easy cash grab. That's why we see so many remasters. It takes less effort, smaller team, and we said, I think, a couple of weeks ago internally, people get their hands on the dev tools and the coding, so they get almost like a trial run at knowing the job before you put them on a brand new project.
That seems
it's
to be
it's like vetting your staff.
That seems to be a way now. It's a way of upskilling them while you're working on the next one.
Like if you look at Metal Gear Delta, who I believe it's Team Virtuous, which is ironically because Team Virtuous is inside the game as well. They're the team making Delta. By the time they've made Delta and then 1 and then Sons of Liberty, and then potentially Guns of Patriots remake, they'll have had probably 2 decades of making Metal Gear games to the best quality. They'll be more than ready to make a new entry in the series after 20 years.
And by then the relationship and the fallout with Kojima is well in the past.
Kojima should be retired by then. Like, no one will care, no one will know. So it's like, and they've got a whole franchise. Just wait them out.
Just keep remastering and remaking the games that already exist until Kojima dies, and then now we are free.
I mean, I went with retire, but at the same time, nobody lives forever. I mean, he might be on like Death Stranding 13 by then.
He won't make a fair Death Stranding. I don't think he'll even make a third one, never mind a 13th one. He'll do something else weird. You know what he's like?
He's got projects in the works.
Yeah, indeed. And talking about weird, Amazon Luna, we've got some Amazon Prime games for October.
What? Do we?
Yeah, we do. We occasionally talk about Luna on this show.
What have we got then?
So I'll read through the list and then I'll let you pick any ones you want to talk about. Alien Isolation, Mortal Shell, Dusk, Perish, Tormented Souls, Amid Evil, Valfaris, Doomblade, Monster Harvest, Fortnite Battle Royale, Fortnite Battle Royale, Fortnite Festival, Fortnite Battle Royale, Rocket Racing, X-Defined, Fortnite Battle Royale, Lego Fortnite, Trackmania.
Are you trying to make out like Luna only promote Fortnite on their social channels?
I'm reading the things that are on their blog. They have listed these games separate when they are the same game, so I'm listing them separate and pointing out they are part of Fortnite.
It's a good spooky lineup. All the titles, they're definitely horror themed.
Yeah, Fortnite Festival is absolutely terrifying.
Alien Isolation's great.
Yeah, that's the pick of the bunch by far.
That's probably the pick of the bunch, yeah.
Love Alien Isolation.
I saw actually earlier on today, while we're on the track of Luna, Duncan from our Stadia days mentioned that if Luna can survive for about another 6 months, it will have outlived Google Stadia.
Really?
Is an interesting, Again, I don't know where he's getting his date from, because if that's like early access, because it released again in the States well ahead of everywhere else.
Yeah, it did.
So it's kind of, it's possibly skewed, but I just saw his tweet and I thought it made me go like, huh. I mean, we will get to that reality at some point, unless it folds its cards as well, because we'll see. But yeah, there's some Prime games to keep it stacked as you go into spooky season at least. Go play Fortnite.
Indeed. Or you could go play a From Software game, because good guys From Software giving their staff a nearly 12% salary increase starting next year.
Legends. I wish my company was doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure everyone listening wish their companies were doing that. 12%. What would you do with that? Think of your pension.
I think I'm not a big fan of From Software games, but I think this just goes to show that their management teams have their heads screwed on. They realise the talent they have.
Mm-hmm.
Keep them happy. It's not an insane concept where if fundamentally people go to work to earn a living. So if you want to keep yourself happy, keep them earning a living.
And if you want the best talent, you got to pay the best top dollar, right?
And the reality is they can afford it with how well Elden Ring's done, and Shadow of the Erdtree. I
mean, everything they've touched, right? Even
Armored Core did well.
Armored Core did great.
Yeah, like I'm glad to see that some of these profits land back into the hands of the people who made these great games.
Deservedly so.
Yeah.
Maybe with their percentage increase.
That being said, if they all paid peanuts, 12% of one peanut is still nothing. I don't know the salary.
Peanuts, right?
Yeah.
I think they paid well. Again, it's Japanese, right? And I think
it's from 260,000 yen to 300,000 yen.
If you look at like the culture over there, though, Nintendo have made no layoffs. Everyone else in the industry has. Nintendo haven't.
Yeah, Nintendo have one of the biggest cash reserves of any company in the world.
But they don't have to, and this is where I think business and culture are like wildly different across the world. Whereas like I know, like I don't know about your social feeds, but I see shit all the time about people in the States getting sacked and laid off for next to nothing, and then they revolve around tips in a lot of industries, and it's just like you shouldn't be relying on your customers to pay your staff's livelihood.
Yeah,
like your base level should cover more than that. And if you want to have a child, it costs you 10 grand or something like that. And it's just in many ways the most advanced country in the world, and in so many ways the most backwards in terms of social care and other things. Yeah. But that's a whole different conversation.
It's the economic arguments around freedom. Like, does having full economic freedom to pay and choose how much you get actually warrant a true freedom? Because then if you fall ill, and you can go pick whatever hospital you want to pay whatever, but then you're trapped by the cost of it all. So you don't really have a choice because the price won't.
Imagine something happening to a family member and you having to factor in how much it will cost you to call an ambulance to get them there.
I couldn't. This is why I could never live in the United States. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't. Yeah. I mean,
freedom is not free.
I know they have an insurance-based system, but the insurances are basically profit-seeking. So they're not there to help you out. They're there to make money out of you.
What were we talking about?
Astrobot has got a soundtrack, and it's dropped on Spotify.
And it's a banger as well.
Is it? I haven't heard it.
Oh, I mean, the whole soundtrack, Richie, is. I've been listening to it today when it dropped, and there's some remixes from certain franchises that are like on point.
Oh, do I listen to the soundtrack, or do I just save it for when I play the game so I get it in context?
Play the game. Because there's some spoilers in there as well, I would say. But yeah, the spoilers are also some of my favourite songs. So it's like,
yeah,
so good. It's so good.
I will play this game at some point. At least in part. I don't know if I'll play the full game, but my girlfriend's definitely going to be playing it, so I'll see a lot of it.
Once you get your hands on it, you'll want it. And it's a fun platinum as well. So I think you won't be able to resist once you see it in practice and you have a go. You'll do one or two levels when your girlfriend plays and you're like,
It might be one we go halves on. I've got a feeling it's going to be one of them.
Back and forth, take turns, level.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But that is all we have time for this week. And we like to round out the show every week by going into this week in video game history. Chris, what have you got for us starting October the 4th?
Well, now we're no longer in September, the best month for video game releases. It's slim pickings, Richie.
I don't know. Super Mario World 2's in here.
It's Yoshi's Island. Is it the proper Mario World 2, or is that the Japanese? Because it wasn't the Western release was a different.
Doki Doki Panic.
Yeah. Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I know, is a classic Super Nintendo one from 33 years ago.
Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow. That's in the Dominus collection. We have a first look on the channel. I don't think didn't play Dawn of Sorrow though, which I think was the first one, but the way they list them in the game, they actually put the third one first. I didn't know this till after I recorded.
Fair enough. 13 years ago, we mentioned it, Dark Souls came out on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, so that's a good one. But yeah,
Overwatch 2 was 2 years old.
Already. Should have just stuck with Overwatch 1.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing much. 8 years ago, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Ooh, Assassin's Creed Mirage came out last year. Today.
I think Infinite Warfare was one of the ones that, I think by that point I was already done with the series.
Yeah. And then Demon's Souls on PlayStation 3, 2009. So it seems like a Souls kind of vibe. 8 years ago, Mafia 3, PS3. There you go. That's the throwback.
October the 6th. We already mentioned the show 10 years ago. Alien Isolation.
On PC.
Yeah.
No. One for you, Richie.
One versus Evil.
One for the audience. Not that one. Baldur's Gate 3 got its early access release on Google Stadia.
I had that. I had the early access. I currently do not have access to the game.
Just remember when Stadia had early access to last year's Game of the Year before anyone else.
Which is, it's a game that I think in long term is probably going to fall into the category of, is this one of the greatest games of all time?
Just remember they had Cyberpunk ran best on there as well, and now we're just talking about Fortnite on Luna.
Indeed. Well, that's enough talking for this week's show. If you've liked the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, ring the bell, all that stuff. We've got a Discord channel. Links are in the description for all of our socials. Check out the merch shop. Not yet though. Wait for the sale. When was the sale, Chris? It was the 17th to the 22nd of November?
October, perhaps. Maybe
you've written it down as November.
I'll double check it. Wait, before the episode ends, I'll check.
You're double checking it.
It's October. It's October.
All right. I was gonna say happy birthday to me, but nope, we'll have to wait another month. So you'll get 20% off everything, including my sexy hoodie, Chris's sexy hoodie, maybe a t-shirt. Do you want a bandana for your dog? Because we have them. I recommend the mug. The mug's good. Makes your coffee or your cup of tea taste nicer.
Have you got the mug there to show people?
I do.
Now, you've actually got the merch. This is the giveaway.
Yes, I was going to say, this, I own the mug myself. It's at work. But this is the same mug that I own. It's sexy. It'll make your black coffee blacker. More coffee.
And your white coffee more confusing to your colleagues.
Yes. And everyone will admire how stylish your mug is. But that's all we have time for. Thank you very much. My name's been Richie.
I've been Chris.
GG everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.